Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michelle Robinson, the director of the System Source Learning Center, and we're excited to welcome you today to our webinar on managing your organization's ChatGPT and Copilot journeys. We're excited today to talk about some use cases, some things to avoid. We're joined today by Jon O'Keefe, System Source Lead Instructor for AI, and Tim Kulp. He is the Chief Innovation Officer at Mind Over Machines, a very good partner of System Source. As we move forward in the slide, our agenda today is going to start off with really getting started, some things to think about with governance and pitfalls and how to set up the overall structure of what you're planning to do with AI. And then that'll be by Tim. And then Jon's going to talk about prompting, how to go from your Google search to an effective prompt and what that looks like when you're doing it in ChatGPT versus Copilot. So we're going to do some live demo there. And then I'll wrap up with some Q&A. So please feel free to put your questions in the question category in the field on the right, and let us know what questions you have as we go. We'll make sure to address those. And then at the end, we'll do a drawing for a $50 gift card for those who fill out their evaluations. So make sure you fill out your evaluation so you can qualify for that. If you haven't received your pizza yet, please contact Julie. Julie is our marketing manager extraordinaire, and she can be reached by jdellinger@syssource.com. You can see that on your screen there. You can always call in and dial 0 and get the receptionist as well, and we'll track Julie down and see what we can find out about your pizza. But it looks yummy, and I wish I had some myself. All right, so during the webinar, just a couple things. We're in presentation mode until the end. We can certainly come out of presentation mode. You can view the webinar in full screen mode and just hide the webcams if you choose to do that. In chat, again, chat or questions, please make sure you let us know what's on your mind. And then we talked about the evaluation. So let me just give you a really quick overview of System Source so that you know who we are. Many of our clients start at System Source because they want to improve something about their IT services, whether it's training employees to be more efficient and proficient in their work, developing high-end presentation rooms and conference rooms, war rooms, digital signage, or consulting on how they should set up, move from on-prem to the cloud and in our cloud services area. So we have quite a lot of work going on in those areas. And once we get things on the right track, sometimes you need to maintain it, right? So we offer reactive help through our support and service division and proactive help through our managed services division, whether it be desktop servers, print services. We can help you out in those areas as well. And then if all of that is done well, then hopefully it frees up some money to purchase to upgrade your equipment to the newest levels. And of course, we call it our wheel of services because it is never ending, right, in IT. So as we go forward, so why do we have System Source and Mind Over Machines? Let's talk a little bit about that. We've been partnering for over 30 years to handle our customers in a couple of different ways. First is through seamless integration in their infrastructure, but then adding innovation to it. So System Source is here to work with you on your data center and IT infrastructure, cloud platforms, service and support, and of course training behind all of those, whether it's end users, IT developers. And then Mind Over Machines takes it that next step. They add in artificial intelligence and automation and enterprise systems, your CRMs and things along those lines. So integrating with your Office, your Microsoft 365. So working together, we are able to satisfy the needs of our customers regardless of where you are in the cycle. And then what I'm going to do now is turn it over to Tim, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about himself before he gets started. And he's going to talk to us about that AI governance and what we need to be thinking about as we plan our AI journeys. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. So we'll jump right in here, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me in a minute. But really, today we're starting out, I call it AI for mortals. And I mean that, like this, there's a lot of mystification around AI. It's not mysterious, it's not magical, it's not even this mind-bending technology, but it is very impactful. And this is where it really is important for people to understand, you know, when we're looking at the International Monetary Fund recently did a report, 60% of jobs are exposed to AI. And well, what does that actually mean? It means that AI will impact 60% of known jobs today. And that's not even getting into the creation of jobs that we don't know about today. And so when we talk about these metrics, we talk about jobs transforming, and we talk about jobs that will be lost, and we talk about jobs that will be gained, and what does this look for, you know, what does this look like going forward? John, if we go to the next slide, my main message to you is don't panic. Like it's all going to be okay with proper governance and oversight. And so today I want to talk to you about how do you get there. Next slide, please. So who am I? I'm Tim Kulp, Chief Innovation Officer at Mind Over Machines. I work with our clients to help understand what is this AI thing? How do you make sure you operationalize for success? How do you think about the different technologies as part of AI? What we really focus on is how does AI empower your humans? Because as we're going to talk about in a minute, if you do AI to people, they don't like that. And it really creates a massive productivity issue. And so how do you do this AI journey together and think about it as a transformation for your business, much more than just dropping some technology in place? Because that's the level we're talking about. Imagine if you were at the turn of the century and electricity showed up and you're like, oh, well, how do we run a factory with electricity now? That's the level of change we're talking about in the world of AI. Next slide, please. And so to get started, we're going to talk about 3 myths. And these 3 myths really derail a lot of people and get people to not even start. Number 1 is everyone's doing it. Number 2 is it's just too expensive, we can't move forward. And the third one I hear a lot is I need to know everything before we can get started. I need a full strategy before we can get started. And these myths come from a place of either the media or LinkedIn is, man, LinkedIn, you cannot go on LinkedIn without getting hit by an AI influencer. And, you know, let me tell you the best, you know, this thing about AI. It's like, okay, we get it. You know, people know about AI. But also that AI is really expensive. Gartner creates all kinds of reports that say, get ready to spend at least $300,000 to get a useful prototype for any AI tool. And that's just not the case. Similarly, a strategy like, well, we have to have an AI strategy. No, you need to think about your business strategy. So if we go to the next slide and you see the retorts to these things. So everyone's doing it? No. Recent study was from Pew Research. 1 in 6 workers say some of their work is done with AI. So consider that. 1 in 6. The 5 out of the 6 did not say some of their work is done with AI. They're not doing AI at all in their work. It's too expensive. Copilot Studio is a great example of a useful AI solution that you can get in place. You're looking at $200 a month to get this implemented. Now, you have to know what to do with it. You have to know how to organize it and go forward there. But you're not spending $300,000 to get started. You're not spending $1 million to get started. You can get started at a much lower cost and plan it forward with value created. And then finally, do not focus on an AI strategy. Focus on your business strategy. Your business strategy is enabled by AI. AI is just a piece of the puzzle. Same way you have like your people strategy, you have your technology strategy, you should have an AI strategy, and that should cross domains. Next slide, please. So how do you get started? Number 1, have a business strategy. And this is really, really important because a lot of times when we talk to people about AI, And we're like, well, tell us about your business strategy. And they're like, we want to make money. And I'm like, so does every other business. So what is the actual strategy? Like, what are you focused on? What's your priorities for 2025 or 2026? Even if it's just by quarter, really having a clear vision of this is our strategy, this is where we want to be going. That's key because it helps you align your AI investments to that strategy so that you can create a direct line. We are doing this to achieve that. And that's where a lot of people miss the bus with AI. They say, oh, this is really cool, let's implement it. And Microsoft 365 Copilot is a great example of a lot of people saying, this is really cool, let's just implement it. But they don't have a why they're implementing it. And so they don't get value measured of how much impact it's had on their business. And so start with your business strategy. And Microsoft 365 has a huge value proposition when aligned to business strategy. Capable workforce. John's going to dig into this in a little bit. If your team does not understand what AI is or how to use it or how it's going to impact their job or what they could even be thinking about with it, their job, you're going to have some real challenges here. So really thinking about how are you getting your AI literacy built in your team? And that's what when we say that, what we mean is, what is AI? How does it work? How do we think about it in business? And again, I don't mean how does it work like you need to write the statistical algorithms. No, but you should understand it's not making decisions. It's using statistical probability to make assumptions and make best guesses. What does that look like in your business processes? How do humans do that? We think through these processes. Having a capable workforce, what we've seen is once people get this skill set of like, I understand how AI can impact my work, they start having ideas of how they can use it to impact their work. And that's when things get really exciting. I would say most use cases we see, the people on the front lines doing the work outpace the managers and directors with their ideas of how to use AI. Like, because the managers and directors are thinking big picture. People on the front lines doing the work, they're looking at how do I make my life easier today? And they can sprint forward with this stuff. It's really, really cool to see. And then finally, you need technical capabilities. If you're still running on COBOL, you're going to have a challenge moving into an AI world. So, what is your data systems like? If everything's still in Excel, that doesn't mean you can't be using AI solutions. Like, what it means is, what do you have and what does it mean? And so making sure you take the time to understand what is your technical capabilities. You don't have to have a huge cloud environment, and you don't have to have terabytes and petabytes of data to make any AI solution work. A lot of the AI solutions today are pre-trained models that are more like applications. So it's more like a software as a service solution that you can put in place. So when you think about your technical capabilities, you want to just assess, can we be using modern applications like Microsoft 365 Copilot? Can we be using no-code, low-code tools like Power Platform? And are we working in a cloud environment that can make our data easily accessible? These are really good questions to be asked. Next slide, please, John. So starting with that strategy, focus on your business capabilities. We always talk about a business capabilities map. So what is it that your business actually does? And what are the strategic elements that you're doing to improve or focus on those pieces of your business? And so a few, giveaways. Every business has some kind of financial operations. Every business has some kind of people operations. Some businesses have an IT operations, even if it's not in-house. You are still doing a technology operations, to run your business. So what else do you have? Like, we worked with clients that were claims, their big focus was claims management. And so thinking about how medical claim moves through your environment. We've had other clients that it was submarines and how submarines are built. And so thinking about all the different pieces from engineering to, the procurement process of that. These are different business capabilities. Create that map. What are your business capabilities? And then looking at, what are you focused on for your strategy? Because you can't be focused on all of them. Some of them you'll be focused on. What is your culture? If you have a win at any cost culture like Uber, your approach to AI is going to be very different than a company who is very much like a teacher organization focused on student achievement and student growth. Think about your culture and how that culture will impact your AI implementations. If you have values, make sure that those values are being illustrated through your AI systems. So like for Mind Over Machines, one of our key things is transparency. So explainability of AI is very high on our list of priorities. We want to be focused on that. Use your culture as your guidance. Get an executive sponsor. Do not just let, IT does this and, some guy in IT knows it. No, have an executive who can allocate funds for these type of things be the person driving your ship. It's really important. We see constantly, without an executive sponsor, AI programs fall apart. And then build a governance framework. You want to think about, how do people request, I want to use AI. Well, how does that come in? And how do you review it? And who's doing this review? Often AI is kind of sidelined to IT. A lot of times what we're seeing, the most successful AI implementations are a combination of IT, legal, and HR, and sometimes operations. But AI is not just an IT operation, it is a business operation. Next slide, please. Okay. People need to be AI literate. Building that AI literacy is such a fundamental skill for the 21st century workforce, that we are seeing literally people saying, I want to go work at a company that's going to help me build my AI literacy. I want to go do AI projects. And so, the key thing here is you got to have your team built and you got to have your executives building their AI literacy. And it's two different types of AI literacy. Executives need to be thinking about a strategic level. They don't need to be thinking about like, oh, what button do I press on ChatGPT to do X, Y, and Z? They need to be thinking about like, where does ChatGPT fit in our strategic priorities and objectives? Your teams need to be thinking about, how does this fit with my processes? And how do I transform my processes with it? And all of this happens through creating that space for people to have this time to think. This is the piece where we see a lot of people have major struggles. I'm so busy, I can't take a moment to think about how I would do this. And, we just got to go, go, go. But when you're getting ready for this level of a transformation, create time for people to experiment, explore, have fun with, play with these AI tools and experiment with them to see, what does it mean? So we do recommend like classes for sure. We recommend creating time for just playing around with these tools without your production data. Obviously, do not play with production data. So next slide, please.
Good advice.
Yes. Low-code tools. Like, once upon a time, you wanted an AI solution, you hired a data scientist, you had to write the software code, all the algorithms and all the math and all that stuff. That's not how this works anymore. You can do that. And if you're developing new drugs, like new pharma drugs, that is your approach. But for the rest of us, for us mortals, what we're working on is business processes and business data. We have all this business data, whether it's in Excel or SQL databases or, Access databases or wherever it is spread out. You can use low-code and no-code tools to be accessing this. And so we're big fans of Copilot Studio, that you can create lots of great, very powerful solutions there. Another one is, if you're getting out of generative AI, and really want to be focused on machine learning and deep learning, tools like Orange Data Science is a really powerful tool, like crazily powerful, and it's free. It's for education. It's for people who are teaching machine learning and deep learning to be able to work with their students, but you can use it for business as well. And so very powerful tools. If you're using Power Platform and Microsoft 365 capabilities, AI Builder, also very powerful tool to get going with AI. And you don't need to have a huge budget to get started in experimenting with these tools. Next slide, please. Governance on a budget. Number one, governance is more than a policy. So if you hear this and you're like, oh, I have an AI policy, I'm good. Like, you're starting, an AI policy is the start. You really need to be thinking about what's your intake process for ideas, what is your rules of the road of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and it's not just in your policy, You should have procedures that define how do you make these decisions. You should have standards that say these tools are appropriate, these tools are not appropriate, and guidelines of if I'm using an appropriate tool, how do I use that tool? So really thinking about more than just a policy, your governance structure should be an oversight group that is keeping an eye on what's going on. And it needs to be cross-functional. You can't just run this out of IT, because in IT, it becomes an IT issue. And often a lot of companies very much see IT as a cost center. And I've experienced this so many times in my career where it's like, okay, how do we cut costs in IT? Well, we don't need this governance thing. We just get rid of that. No, this is an investment. And so really making sure that you have it in departments that can help carry that message. I always say the number one partner to get involved in governance is your legal team, because the legal team usually isn't questioned when they said something needs to happen. And so they are a powerful partner with this. And as AI regulation is in this constant flux that's happening right now, they're a necessary partner to make sure that you're not stepping on your toes. Really thinking about your use cases. What do people want to do with AI, and how are you tracking that? Because that use case is the foundation of all regulation. So there are new laws in Maryland that are coming through. House Bill 1331 just got introduced, and it's talking about high risk, use cases. How do you know if you have a high risk use case if you don't track your use cases? And so simply tracking, what are you doing with it? Why are you doing, this with AI, and who's doing it? Just that simple. Excel is your friend. This does not have to be fancy. Just have that reference for you to be able to say, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. Next slide. And things can go horribly wrong when you start saying, nobody's using AI in our company. Like, they absolutely are. Like, every software vendor is embedding it into their products. The question is, are you governing these products as you would think? Like, Grammarly is a great example. Grammarly is using generative AI and can, depending on your license, be using the data on, that you're interfacing with it for their training models. Working with, the licensing to make sure you have the right license, that your data is not lingering in somebody else's data store, is super critical. So getting a grip on what is the AI deployed through your organization is really, really important. 2, don't force AI on people. And you might hear that and say, well, wait a minute, but what if I need to do it because my business needs to transform and all this stuff? If you're needing to transform your business, you want to transform your business, bring people along with you on the AI journey. What we have seen is very few times have people been like, I'm not doing this. When they're brought along with compassion and empathy and encouragement of, we want you to own this, make it work. And if you don't do that, you will not have a good ROI on your AI solution. That's just standard. Like, people won't use it. People fight against it. It's going to cost more to implement. It's going to cost more to operate. Bring your people along early. And AI is not the solution for everything. I keep hearing people say, can we just put some AI on that? And it's like, no, it's not a medicated cream. You can't just put AI on a problem. It doesn't fit for every problem. There are certain things it's better and more cost effective for a human to do the work, right? And more valuable. So really understanding, where should AI fit and where shouldn't it fit? This is really important. And how do you know that? Through your AI literacy. And then beware of, oh, it only costs X, to do this. You need to think about the care and feeding. And this is one of the reasons we love Copilot Studio, because it requires minimal care and feeding. You can do a lot with it very well. You want to grow your capabilities. You want to make sure your copilots are in tune and working great, but you don't have to keep monitoring it. A lot of AI solutions that you do implement that are good return on investment, high scale, high value, there is a care and feeding that has to occur with them. Next slide. So with governance, this is all just to get started. This is a huge topic. We could talk for hours and hours and hours on just this topic. And so just wanted to get started with it. And I want you to kind of consider this point, how much machine do you want to be? And that's not a plus or a minus. Like, this is just something to think about. AI can do a lot. It can do a lot of a lot. We talk about 60% of jobs, but it's actually, when you break down the processes, we're more in the 85 to 90% of processes can be impacted by AI. So how much AI do you want your business to be? It can be good and bad. This is where governance helps you define, this is what's okay, here's how we're going to operate going forward. So really thinking about that governance piece, not so much as legal is making us do this, thinking about it as another piece of your culture. This is who we are, and this is what is acceptable here in the world of AI. Next slide, please. And that's all from me. John, turning it over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jon O'Keefe. I am with System Source, and I am an instructor here. So I'm going to be giving you some AI perspective from what I've been teaching the last year and a half. We've run a lot of students through a variety of different AI courses here at System Source. And what we're finding is that we're seeing more and more students coming in, more and more end users coming in to learn some basic skills around AI. Now, there is an interesting juxtaposition that's happening right now, and you can hear it when Tim is describing AI implementation inside of businesses here. So one of the things that's supposed to happen with AI, like all new technologies, is that it's supposed to be easy to use. Now, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, we were still talking about AI, but we were talking about AI in regards to organizations like IBM, right? These large Fortune 100 organizations that were able to implement machine learning and deep learning, go through and build out these fancy AI systems that would accomplish a singular task. As many of you might remember, one of AI's first big use cases that we had from a public perception was it being able to win chess. So just creating an AI system that could compete in a complex environment like chess, that is what we think of when we think of past AI modalities. But the newest AI modalities are what's been commonly referred to as Gen AI. Gen AI stands for generative AI, and it's these newer organizations, such as when you think of ChatGPT, or you think of Gemini or Claude, or any of these chat bots that are out there, that is what we refer to as Gen AI. And it's supposed to be really, really easy to use. And for all intents and purposes, it is. When you're talking about adopting AI into a small or medium-sized business infrastructure, sometimes all that's necessary is the adoption of Microsoft Copilot or the adoption of ChatGPT organizationally. Because these tools, at their most basic level, are simple and easy to use. They function on natural language processing. They're what we call large language models. They're trained to be interactive, and they're trained with you to be able to use what would be natural speak to you in order to get a result. Now, one of the biggest challenges that we see from a system source perspective, and that's a training and implementation perspective, is that when people assume a tool is easy to use, they do not do enough training on the tool to actually make it useful. Because while things are easy to use, and you'll see this when you ask a new hire, can you use Excel? And the new hire is going to say, yeah, absolutely, I can use Excel. I've used Excel before. I know how to go in. I know how to do some basic things with Excel. But what happens when you start pushing on that end user to create more complex things inside of an application? Typically, they either fall apart or they need to seek out some sort of training. And Gen AI is actually no different. At its most basic level, and what you see on your screen right now are examples of ways in which people use Gen AI all the time. It can be beneficial as a tool inside an organization. These are some basic prompts and basic prompting types that you'll see people use with both ChatGPT and Copilot. Some examples of this are basic questions that you might have about an application. instruction following, for example. I can ask ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot how to write a formula for something. I've switched here into ChatGPT. This is the ChatGPT interface. You can see also Copilot has a similar interface that you can use where you can ask a question of one of these products here. And if it is application based, it can give you an answer. So an example of a basic prompt would be how to construct a formula inside of Excel. I teach a lot of Microsoft Excel, and a lot of people really want to get more out of that application on a day-to-day basis. And so one of the great things that a program like ChatGPT or Copilot or other Gen AI systems can do is they can provide us with that type of easy answer. Here's a great example of this. I want to add up all my cells in D2 through G2, but I only want to add the cells that are over 85,000. Then I want to multiply the result by 5%. So here you can see what I'm doing is I'm using a basic prompt. I'm asking ChatGPT to help me build an Excel formula, something that all businesses probably need help with when it comes to their end users here. And what you'll notice is I didn't do it with any code. I didn't do it with any secret language. I'm just using my natural words here. I want to add up all my cells in D2 through G2. I only want to add up the cells that are over 85,000, and I want to multiply the result by 5%. It's going to give me a sum if function. And by asking it here, it is not only going to tell me what it's going to do, it's going to give me the actual Excel code that I can copy and just literally paste into a workbook here. So I have an Excel, just a blank Excel workbook here. I can copy the code into H2. And then if I put data into D2 through G2 here, we'll do 86,000. It'll add that up and multiply it. We'll do 82,000. It won't add that up because it's not over 85,000. We'll do 100,000 here. And then we'll do 90,000. And so you can see here how quickly I'm able to just build out a simple mathematical formula or function inside of Excel. And that is an example of basic prompting. There's a lot of things that you can do when it comes to basic prompting. And Gen AI, from an organizational perspective, is useful for that. The problems that you run into are that when you only assume that Gen AI and AI tools are useful for this and this alone, is where you end up in some form of trouble. Another example inside of ChatGPT might be if, for example, I come in here and I give it a prompt to write a blog. Write a blog about Gen AI use for small and medium-sized businesses. So here, asking a simple prompt, write a blog about Gen AI use for small and medium-sized businesses, I get a 2-paragraph or 2-sentence quick response here. Because Gen AI models are designed around a variety of different prompting techniques that we can use to get them to produce content in a variety of ways. If your coworker or if your employee were to come in and just ask a simple question like this, they might get 10,000 word response. They might get a 2-sentence response. Now, why does that response vary so much? Because these systems are based on non-determinism. And what non-determinism means is that every time you ask ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or Claude or any of these Gen AI systems a question, you're going to get a slightly different answer. The reason non-determinism is so helpful is because it helps create a more lifelike interaction between you and the AI system. An example of non-determinism happens when I go ahead and ask ChatGPT a basic question such as, how is your day going? Now, we all know that ChatGPT is not a real person, but one of the many uses outside of the business scenario that people are finding with ChatGPT is that its conversational abilities are very good, and it can be a source of interaction for a lot of different people. So ChatGPT here responds in a non-deterministic way. If each and every one of you were to load into ChatGPT right now and ask the same question, how is your day going? You're all going to get slightly different responses. Just the same way that you would get different responses if you asked 3 of your coworkers or 3 of your friends. If you know someone really well and you ask them how their day is going, they might give you a more truthful answer. If you don't know someone very well, just like when a stranger asks me how I'm doing, I always respond with the ever famous living the dream. And so I'm going to say living the dream here back to ChatGPT. And ChatGPT is going to go ahead and have a conversation with us. So now, as far as a business perspective, non-determinism helps when we ask it to perform creative tasks. So while I might get a different answer every time I ask it how its day is going, when I ask it to brainstorm something for me or I ask it to create something for me, I'm going to get a slightly different response every time. Now, going back into our Gen AI, write a blog about Gen AI for use for small and medium-sized businesses, sometimes non-determinism can take over. Now, I want you to all think about this. You have employees that work inside your organization. You've just rolled out some adoption to utilizing a tool like this. And one of your more skeptical employees comes in and they ask it to write a blog post for them. And this is the ChatGPT response. Is this a helpful response for a variety of individuals out there? It is absolutely not. And this is where we often see where training can make a big impact. Because rather than just use ChatGPT with basic prompting, which will be a lot of why you will use ChatGPT. How do I build this formula? How can I reformat this data? Create a table of currency exchange rates, right? These are all kind of basic prompting. For the more initiated into here, you can use more advanced prompting techniques. So these are what we would consider more advanced prompting techniques, what you're seeing on your screen. There's a bunch of different methodologies that you can use to prompt. And for those of you that have been around the business landscape for a while, you may remember a time in the early 2000s as search engines were really coming online. And we were starting to see that battle between Alta Vista, Yahoo, AOL, and the new upstart Google. And back in the day, one of the things that you noticed was that there were people who were better at Googling than other people. And to this day, I would still say that that is somewhat the case. Although the Google algorithm has had 20 years plus to be refined, there are people that are better at finding things on Google than others. If you ask me to Google something and find it, I'm more likely to know which terminology to use in order to find the exact right thing than, let's say, my 70-year-old mother is. And when it comes to ChatGPT or other Gen AI systems, one of the things that we're seeing out there is that there is a basic level of use that most people are capable of approaching and easily implementing. And if your implementation strategy is to roll out Copilot or to roll out ChatGPT or other Gen AI systems as a first step into the world of utilizing AI in your business, you're going to get end users who are capable of asking a simple question of ChatGPT or Copilot. But where the training comes in is learning that you can really craft and get better results from Gen AI systems when you use more advanced prompting technology, more advanced prompting methodologies. I'm going to show you right now one of the more advanced prompting methodologies called Risen. Now, inside of ChatGPT, instead of just asking it to write a blog for me, I'm going to go ahead and use the Risen method. Now, the Risen method stands for role, instructions, steps to follow, end goal, and narrowing. And this is a more advanced methodology for creating a prompt. So I want to ask it to write a blog for me. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this works very well inside of Gen AI systems, just in general, is assigning the AI a role. When you assign the AI a role, it can function outside of kind of the generative, like normal AGI that it is, which is artificial general intelligence. That's a whole other term that we're not going to get into today, but it becomes a little bit less general and can focus more on a specific task. As a matter of fact, researchers have found that role assignment is one of the biggest ways that you can get a Gen AI system to more accurately respond and create whatever information it is that you're looking for. Recently, during a mathematics competition, they ran the same model of ChatGPT, and without giving ChatGPT a role, it was able to score about 60%. And then when they gave it a role, and the role they gave it is really interesting, they told it that it was a Starfleet engineer, and then gave it the exact same mathematical test. It scored in the upper 90%. So role is an important part in general prompting that you'll use every day and that your employees would need to learn how to use. Telling ChatGPT who it is when it's answering a question makes a big impact. So here I'm going to tell it that you are taking on the role of a blog writer who focuses on AI in small and medium-sized businesses. Now I'm going to give it its instructions. Instructions are typically very simple, but when using the Risen methodology, you'll notice that rather than just saying, please write a blog post, I am surrounding the instruction with other things that help craft the journey here. So I'm going to say, please write me a blog post about business uses for Gen AI in small and medium-sized organizations. So now I've done R and I, role and instruction. Now I'm going to give it some additional steps. This is like working with a contractor. You don't invite a contractor into your kitchen and just say, give me kitchen. You tell them, well, I would like to do the floors and the cabinets. I'd like a new farmhouse sink. I would like new appliances, except for the fridge, which needs to stay. So we're going to give it some steps now to writing this blog. First, I would like you to introduce the concept of Gen AI and why it is so helpful. Then list several tasks that Gen AI can make easier inside of the MS Office platform. Finally, make some recommendations for the types of trainings that individuals would want to take in order to become better at using Gen AI. So those are my steps. Now I need to give it an end goal. End goals, or goals inside of AI, really help the large language model, the GPTs, to focus and to not confabulate as much. Confabulation, or what we used to call hallucination, is when a GPT or a large language model will respond, and it will give you kind of gibberish or nonsense or things that don't really make sense. It happens. There's a variety of reasons it happens. We don't fully understand why, but we do know what some things we can do to prevent it are, and using methodology like this can prevent it. So my end goal here, is to create a blog post that is informative and interesting for our website. Now, finally, I need to narrow. Narrowing is typically where you'll set what we call temperature, telling it like, do you want it to be super creative? Do you want it to be very matter of fact? You can also tell it how long you want it to be, how short you want it to be, a specific style that you might want it to be. And so my end goal is to create a blog post that's informative and interesting for our website. Please no longer than 1,000 words, and be a little creative with the information. Now, this is a much longer prompt than write me a blog. But you're going to see here that the content that is created is much more in line with what a human might create with this example here. So now it's going to go through and it's going to create a blog for me. Oh, I didn't mean to abort that. Sorry. Go ahead and do that. So here it's going to go ahead and it's going to create this why Gen AI is a game changer. Generative AI is no longer a futuristic concept. It's here and it's transforming how businesses operate for small and medium-sized businesses. Where resources are often stretched thin, Gen AI offers a way to level the playing field with the ability to generate content. So there are more advanced prompting methodologies that you can learn to use. Risen is one of them. So if I were to show one of your end users, hey, this is what you can do with Gen AI, the adoption percentage is probably going to be very low. However, if we go ahead and we show them how to do a proper prompt, just like you would show someone how to do a proper Google search, or back in the day, a proper internet search, or even further back in the day, a proper, programming. These are all things that need to be learned, even if what you're trying to provide is a basic tool for your end users to simplify some of their tasks. So the difference here is night and day between when you use a basic prompt and when you use a more advanced prompting methodology. And there's lots of advanced prompting methodologies that exist out there. You have guided iteration, you have nested prompts, you have chaos prompting, you have AI assisted questioning, you have SWOT and wishbone analysis, Ishikawa templates. There's a lot of things out there that you can learn how to do. And that is one of the key components of getting an AI tool adopted inside an organization. You can't just drop a piece of software on someone, even one that's easy to use, and expect everyone to become an expert in it overnight just by playing around with it. And the myth of AI is that it's all easy. And it is, but it also, you can get so much more out of it when you start to look at things like advanced prompting. Now with AI and Gen AI, you can typically generate a variety of different things. Both Copilot and ChatGPT can generate text, code, images. They can generate video and audio files. Different tools can generate different things. And inside of these platforms, you can turn on or off the ability to generate each of these modalities on its own. So if you don't want your individual end users to be able to generate code, and that sometimes might be a little scary, right? I don't know if I want Ricky in accounting writing a bunch of Python using ChatGPT to make a program that's easier for himself. So you can turn these things on or off. Now, they're not capable of creating everything. So there's some limitations to these programs. And the limitations also vary depending on which type of program that you're going to use. And so let me show you just quickly here some limitations that exist inside of ChatGPT that don't exist inside of Copilot and vice versa here. One of the things that I like to do inside of ChatGPT is I like to ask it to create PowerPoint presentations for me. So here we just wrote a nice blog post here about unlocking the power of Gen AI in small and medium-sized businesses. So now I'm going to go ahead and ask it to turn this into a PowerPoint. And ChatGPT is capable of creating a PowerPoint file for us. It will take a second, but it will generate a PPTX that we can download and then begin to use. At the same time, built into Microsoft Office is Microsoft Copilot. So while this is creating a PowerPoint file for us, I can come into the actual PowerPoint application and click on Copilot here. Copilot is embedded inside of Office. And with this, I can create a presentation. I can ask it for Copilot help. Copilot and ChatGPT share very similar architecture, and so I can do the same thing. So while this is generating a slide deck for me, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to feed the same prompt into PowerPoint for us. Up here, I'm going to tell it to create a presentation. It's asking me what I want to create a presentation about. Here, I'm going to go ahead and please write me, I'm just going to change, please write me a presentation. Create a presentation. And so now, inside of PowerPoint, we are going to generate a brand new PowerPoint here, and it's going to give me the ability to click Generate Slides. And you're going to see here in a second the one that Microsoft Copilot is making. While this is generating, I am going to download the PowerPoint file from here. I'm going to download it right into my download folder, and I'm going to open it. And so you're going to see this is what ChatGPT, with no plugins, with no additional GPTs, created. So it created slides. There's no images, there's no notes, there's no additional information. As a matter of fact, some of the structuring looks a little bit weird inside of here. But inside of Copilot, it's able to go ahead and make a much more comprehensive slide deck with sections already built. It's already got animations and transitions, and it even includes some of the some notes here. So a basic differentiator between two Gen AI systems might be its ability to create and analyze data inside of tools that you're using. Now, ChatGPT is generally a little bit better at more of the generalized questions and information, but Copilot is a little bit better about manipulating data that is live inside of the Office application. And your Office applications have Copilot associated with them if you have a Copilot license. So one of the things that you'll very much want to consider when looking at implementation is training, because as a training company, we've put through thousands of students from a variety of organizations through basic Gen AI training, learning how to do prompts, learning how to do advanced prompts, learning how to utilize these applications inside of and outside of the Microsoft Office platform. And that has made a huge impact on these organizations and their ability to successfully adopt AI. Remember, if you give someone a tool and you don't teach them how to use it properly, you're only going to get the bare minimum out of most of your end users. They're going to end up using it to make chicken dip recipes and to think up fantasy football names when the season comes around. But if you give people a training and let them understand that while you can use this tool very simply, but by adding a couple of key phrases or key ideas, you can get so much more out of the tool, then you can see where training and other differences might come into play. The second thing that you need to consider is, do you want to use an application-specific tool, such as Copilot, or do you want to use something that's a little bit more generic and software as a service living in the web, such as ChatGPT? There are positives and negatives to both. It's always helpful to learn prompting methodologies, whether you're using Copilot or Gemini or Claude or ChatGPT. But at the end of the day, from an organizational perspective, you'll need to look at two different things. One, how are we going to train on the AI tool? And then which AI tool makes the most sense for us? Tim is really excellent at figuring out which AI tool makes the most sense for you. And I'm really excellent at making sure that your people get trained and understand exactly what it is that they can and cannot do with this tool and how to be really effective with it. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Michelle.
Great.
And so we can go through some courses that we have and questions and all of that stuff.
Yeah, we've got some great questions in the question box. So Tim and John, if you want to take a look at those, I might have answered Dr. Taylor's question, but what you have on the screen, we have introduced some new ChatGPT sessions. Now you might ask, why do you have so much ChatGPT and call to schedule a private Copilot class? It just so happens that the majority of our customer base today, it was ready for Copilot. I'm sorry, was ready for ChatGPT. But we do see that slowly shifting, and we've done quite a bit of private Copilot training, just we don't have it on the open enrollment schedule. But what I will tell you is, regardless of whether you're using Copilot or ChatGPT, our ChatGPT for Everyone course there at the top has all of this great information about how your prompts are made, how to be more effective in your prompting, a little bit of the history of how Gen AI came about. Those classes are always, always, always guaranteed to run. So you don't have to worry about them getting canceled. The next course is using ChatGPT to increase office productivity. So, if we think about it, a lot of times our users aren't quite ready for the paid license, but they still want to be able to do better in their work. So whether you're using, again, Copilot, or you're using, Copilot in Microsoft, or you're using ChatGPT, we're going to show some ways to prompt to get better results in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint in that class. And then we introduced these new 1-hour sessions that are webinar style. An introduction, working with Microsoft Excel, working with PowerPoint, and working with Word. Those are brand new sessions, and if you're only working in Excel, this is a great way to get the piece of information that you need. And I do anticipate all of those classes will be guaranteed to run as well. Then on the Microsoft side, we have the Azure AI Fundamentals course. This is a great entry point if you're just getting started and trying to figure out what's going on with AI in Azure. This is a wonderful class to do that. It's a Microsoft official class. We've also got something for your designers who are setting things up, which would be great. Even if you engage working with Tim, you want to make sure you have the background knowledge of where things are found along with the business processes. And then there's also an interactive experience for executives. So executives, you want to get your hands on it, see what it can do for you and how it might impact your organization. That is also interesting. If you go to the next slide, and of course, all of these courses can be offered privately. So if you have a group of people and you want to tailor the course to your environment, absolutely, we can do that. Microsoft has released some certifications for AI for all of you out there. They are few and far between right now, I will tell you. They're constantly working on this. More so than certifications, they have introduced applied skills. So you're going to see on our website and everywhere a lot of one-day Microsoft courses, which are called the applied skills courses, for which you can get a badge, but it's not a true certification. But I did want to leave you with that. And of course, you'll have access to this deck after the session, so you can take a look at those courses and click on the links and see what they're all about. All right, real quick, Tim, did you want to take that first question for us?
If Tim can't see it, I'm going to read it to him. Tim, the question, did you see it or no?
Yeah, excuse me, it just appeared for me. So.
Okay, yeah, I sent it to you. So go ahead, and I think that's a great question for you to take.
Okay, so how can so the question just for everybody is how can we vet AI tool vendors to filter out the ones that actually offer something useful and isn't just trying to get their hands on our, we'll say data for training their models? So many new companies are popping up around this technology, have no history or reviews to research. Yes, great question. Here's the reality is remember the day when you could just be like, oh, well, whatever the terms and conditions say, just approve and move on. Like, no, that's over. Like, you've got to read the details and you got to have your legal team involved. And so a very key and critical element of this AI world is who owns your data, what is the process is, and make sure that is explicitly discussed with the vendor as you're going forward. And what we see is when we're having these conversations with vendors, there's a lot of like, well, that's how we do it. And that's not a good sign. Now the question becomes, does my data go into your training set? And you should have, as part of your AI policy and procedures, the questions you go through with your vendors to say, here are the questions we need you to answer, and you need to answer those, going forward. The other piece here is also understanding what algorithms are being used. Like, are we using GPT-4, 5, 4.0, 4 whatever? Like, are we using, DeepSeek on the back end? Are we, what are we doing here? Is it open source? Are you doing your own thing? These are all critical questions. So when you have a company that shows up, a vendor who has this flashy thing that's like, hey, do this, we got all this, stop and say, okay, I need you to take me through how your AI system works. And if they're like, oh, well, I don't know, and I'll get you an engineer. Yes, get me an engineer and don't move forward until that. Also, ask the question, very important, when I leave your company, what happens to my data? Like, so critical. And often you'll get a red face from the salesperson with that question because these are questions people haven't asked before. And so be an informed consumer, hit them with those questions. Hope that helps.
There's another question that said, are there easy ways to combine Gen AI large language model tools with the deep machine learning tools? For example, asking AI to discover for me some trends in data, some trends in a data set that I have.
Yeah, that's a Gen AI thing that can absolutely happen. I mean, I can go right into ChatGPT right now and I can load a file from my OneDrive here really quickly. I have a test file here. So when I select this, I can load it in. This is what this file looks like. It's simple data, right? It's not, I'm not trying to make this ridiculous here. It's sales data, product performance data, and marketing all inside of one Excel document here. But I can ask it for data analysis here. Please give me the rundown on what's in here, right? And so I can start interrogating data utilizing Gen AI very easily. I can ask it to make visualizations. I can ask it to do data analysis. I can ask it specific questions about the data. So, you know, another thing here, you know, once this generates, I can just simply say who are my top, you know, who are my top sales performers, right? So like, who are my top 5 sales reps? And it can go through and it can build out visualizations or whatever I tell it to do. So here are my top 5 sales reps, their name, their territory, their manager, their total sales, their commission, anything else that I might want to set here. Then I could ask it, put this in a pie chart, which I would never actually tell it to do because pie charts are awful. But the idea here is that yes, you can combine the analysis algorithms inside of Gen AI, and specifically now I can see my top 5 sales reps performance. Now my top 5 reps are basically all performing about the same. Ella seems to be the outlier with an additional 1%, and we can start digging and asking much more complicated questions. I can say, you know, based on total sales and our marketing spend, make a recommendation on adjusting our marketing budget for next year. And it's going to analyze, and this data is not relational. This is an Excel document, but it's going to go ahead and it's going to look at the marketing spend and cross-reference it against the sales spend. Here's our a marketing efficiency analysis. What's the spend? What's our sales per dollar? And we can go ahead and here's some recommendations. So yes, the answer, Jonathan, is absolutely. You can combine LLM and GPT technology with deep analytics. There are lots of data analysis GPTs that are built for this specific purpose. So there's tons of data analysis GPTs that are built to do this, and you can use them with you know, any data sets that you might have.
Thank you.
If I can add on to that just real quick, and also, you know, this is great examples of using what's into tools like ChatGPT with proprietary data sets that you want to like really keep a tight control on and not let out of your systems. This is where Copilot Studio, you can tie in with AI Builder and Power Automate and do very deep analysis, as well as if you get the heavy duty license to Copilot for Fabric with Power BI, you can do a lot of computational there as well. So you know, it's all about your process.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those are really important things to consider. So when you fill out your evaluation today, there's an opportunity for some time with Tim to sit down and talk about your AI strategy. If that's something that interests you, if you're getting started in this, there is an opportunity to let us know that you're interested in training, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT, whatever your flavor is, we can certainly help with that. And if you need to get your infrastructure in place to make sure that you have the ability to do it, there's also an opportunity to talk to us about that. We really appreciate your time today. We kept you a little long, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.